You're listening to the Digital Deep Dive, where we tackle the newest trends, strategies, and pain points shaping growth across the digital landscape. From Amazon and D2C to international expansion, join our host and e-commerce leaders across multiple industries for in-depth discussions on how to maximize your brands in the digital arena. Now, here's your host, Aaron Conant.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Digital Deep Dive podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Conant, and today we are going to do a deep dive into kind of the history of Amazon advertising. Basically kind of that scale. I've been having a lot of questions lately as people have been moving around, as people have been, I would say, leaving jobs or getting let go. And then the follow-up people who are in a spot need to still explain what's going on within Amazon advertising, why it's essentially different than everything else, what's changed, why has it grown so much. It's very interesting from the standpoint. You think a lot of these conversations would have been had, but surprisingly enough, they haven't. So Tim Zawislack has been a longtime friend of the network, has been at large brands, has been within agencies, and we were catching up the other day. And I think we actually recorded a podcast probably over a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. Geez, I can't remember. And we're catching up. And I was like, hey, Tim, you want to jump back on and chat Amazon advertising? And he was like, yeah, let's go. So, Tim, I'll kind of kick it over to you. If you want to give brief background on yourself and everything, that'd be awesome. And then we'll jump into a conversation. Sound good?
Sure. It sounds great, Aaron. Great to join you. Great to have caught up the other night. Always a pleasure. I've had the privilege and really an honor of working and helping drive some very, very large legacy brands over the years. And they're all different and they all have their nuances and they all have different go-to-market strategies and sort of business models and so on. But there's a lot of similarities and there's a lot of sort of laws of physics, immutable laws of physics that just don't change across categories, across products, across organizations. And, one of which, especially today, is that, Amazon is pretty important, and in some cases it can be the most important to some organizations. And it not even necessarily as sort of as a customer to whom you're selling goods, but as a vehicle to sort of tell your story and tell your brand story and lend, authenticity and relevance in the face of a lot of what I like to call nascent brands that didn't exist a year, 2, 3 years ago. They just didn't exist. I mean, you've got this whole sort of cropping up of brands that, in some cases, 12 consonants in a row. This is a brand now. Like it's insane, but like this is what's going on. And so, Amazon not only as sort of as a cash register, but also as a vehicle to really explain why your brand is relevant. These are sort of becoming some immutable laws of physics out in the marketplace in the consumer world. Look, just as a brief history, and I've gone back to this basically from day one of Amazon ads. Back in the dark ages, I had a lot more hair. I was, a little skinnier back then. But, what I remember back then, in 2012, thereabouts, it was the Amazon Media Group, AMG. They launched Amazon advertising platform, AAP. And, that has all sort of, there's been a myriad of changes of names and products and this and that. But basically, what you're looking at today is, Amazon advertising, that's sort of the business unit now. And, what's interesting is that, they can help a lot of businesses in many, many different ways. And I've worked on some both sides of that, in other words, the endemics, which are people that sell on Amazon, as well as the non-endemics, so like the cruise lines and this and that don't sell, cruise trips on the platform. So, they have had such an incredible run over the last several years of evolving their product, launching new products. You look at, the Amazon Prime Video. Relatively new. It's not been out all that long in terms of, you look at CBS, NBC. These guys have been out, whatever it is, many, many decades at this point. And you look at sort of the traction that Amazon Prime Video has made in a blip relative to some of these guys that have been out for decades. And, this year they opened that up to advertisers to be allowed to advertise on that. And boy, oh boy, are they leaning into it. And if you are on the brand side, again, endemic or non-endemic, if you're not sort of playing in that space, you're probably missing the boat. And it's such an opportunity to get in front of people that you're just otherwise not necessarily going to be able to get in front of. And it's interesting what I pulled a few stats in advance of our talk today. And I don't want to get bogged down on this. This isn't an analyst call or earnings call by any stretch. But if you look at historically what that business, the revenue has done on the Amazon advertising, I'm looking here. This is from Statista, who I like. 2019, they were doing a little under $13 billion in ads. Last year, according to them, little under $47 billion. It's stunning.
But it makes sense though, right? I mean, they're delivering. If you go back, you mentioned AMG. My biggest issue when I was on the brand side with AMG was actually getting information back out, right? Whether it was the path to purchase, whether it was, they kept saying the halo effect. Yes. One of our good friends, Kashif now, who's over at XMars, June Choi is over there with him as well. And I was actually buying my ads. June worked at Amazon. He was on the Amazon ads team. And so, these things that I was asking from him back in the day, like we're talking 2015, 2016, was like, hey, this looks great. But the halo effect, like how do you actually prove this out? Or, hey, you're saying I, have a $1.72 ROAS, but I'm looking at 18 cents. Like what? How are you making these complications? And I think one of the parts where it made it really invert was when they started sharing more information, especially with the marketing cloud. When you can show that it actually works, oh yeah, let's go.
Yeah, I mean, what's wild is that AMC is such a cool product if you know what you're doing with it. And if you're able to sort of use that as a center, as a sort of a fulcrum between Amazon retail, Amazon ads, and your internal brand, go-to-market, whatever teams, right? And if you know what you're doing and you are able to orchestrate, and it's a little complicated. And then, by the way, the right agency too. And I know, we have a lot of, we were catching up a bit on agencies as well. But if you also have the right agency in the mix too, who really understands and has line of sight to all that stuff, not only can you make some magic with your brand on the platform, but it will help you if you do it right if you're selling into retail as well, you can get a very, very noticeable lift. And then crucially, you can start glomming some share back from some of these nascent brands that were just eating your lunch, whether you knew it or not, over the last couple, 3 years. It's incredibly powerful. Look, they wanted, I think the big impetus is for AMC. Cookies are supposedly going away. Google's been trying to do this for a while. They can't figure this out yet. But, Amazon, look, to their credit, they've been way out in front of this and said, you know what, cookies, whatever. We have all of these signals that's unique to us. No one else has anything like this. Wire them all up. We don't need cookies anymore. And, I was at a dinner last week where a guy I know and respect immensely was on a whole thing about how, he runs a brand, runs a great business, and he's a smart guy. I'll never sell to Amazon. I'll never put my product on Amazon. Oh, okay. I know you have your reasons. I get it. I really do understand that. I just help me, give me a drop. Help me understand. Well, if I put my product on there, they're going to know all about my product. They're going to reverse engineer it. I said, how much do you do in business? And it's meaningful, but it wasn't billions of dollars. And I said, listen, don't you think that in 2024, if they wanted to know more about your business than you know and your analysts know, I'm pretty sure they could do it whether or not you sell on their platform. And so, it's like they have so many signals out there now that cookies bad. We don't need them.
Yeah, my my favorite is when I'm having those conversations with people and they're like, "I'll never sell to Amazon. I don't want to be on the platform." And I just go to Amazon, right? All I do is talk to brands during the week, right? And so it's all advisory. We don't charge anything. So I'm just like, horsing around. I'm like, I pull up Amazon and I type in their brand. I'm like, you're already on. Like somebody's already selling it, and they're wait, what? Like, yeah, yeah. If you've got that
Exactly.
good of a brand and that good of a product, again, and if you're not, 200, and 200 million and up, somebody's already found your product
Yeah.
and they're selling it there anyways. I'm sorry, they are. Now, the classic, basically the response I have is like, okay, so here's the reality is, do you want to be part of that conversation with the customer or not? Because
Yeah.
Amazon's taking your place and this third party is taking your place that's reselling it. They might have it in their garage, right? Especially if you're in the CPG space, you should be totally freaked out. But you need to be on with it. You have to be on the platform at this point in time. Um, you basically just have to. And yes, is it harder? It's as easy as ever to get your product up there. Is it harder than ever to protect it? Yes. I mean, there's just different rules to the game at this point in time of, hey, when you go out there, you can't just throw anything up there. You have to, you know, um, protect the buy box, right? Unauthorized resellers, all these other things that can happen. But kind of what you're saying, like with the advertising piece and the marketing cloud, I liked how you put it because a lot of people just grab the marketing cloud, they just plug it in, they look at all the data. But oh, by the way, you can do custom audiences in here now, and you can actually do a pixel on your direct consumer site. Now you can bring it in there, and you can do a custom audience that's an exact match. You can, deprecate everybody that you actually put into the clean room. Essentially, what it is, right? You do custom audiences on people who are exactly like that in Amazon and drive them through the DSP back to your direct to consumer site. Like you don't even have to use the marketing cloud to drive traffic to an Amazon detail page. You can drive it to your direct to consumer site. Like you get to do whatever you want. And brands aren't doing it. I don't know.
Here's one of these things that, these things that a lot of people sort of hold true that just isn't necessarily so. And there's context to everything, of course. But, if I had a nickel for as many times as I've heard, oh, Amazon will take all your money, I'd have a lot of nickels. And you look, find me a tech vendor, find me a SaaS, find me in any one of these guys that won't take all your money. Google, call Google, call Meta, call TikTok, call Yahoo. I think they'll still take your money. Like it really just comes down to, it's incumbent on, and I think this is where this falls flat in a lot of buildings. It's incumbent, and you got to be honest about this. It's incumbent on the chief digital officer, chief marketing officer, chief e-commerce officer, whoever is at sort of the top of that food chain. It's incumbent on him or her to take an Amazon ads team and an Amazon retail team and an agency partner. And that's another thing. You'll hear, oh, Amazon ads doesn't talk to Amazon retail. I'm pretty sure they talk. Are they, in the offices next to each other? I have no idea, but I'm pretty sure they do talk. But it is just a fact that it's incumbent on the brand, whoever's running that part of that business on the Amazon side, it's incumbent on the brand to wire all that up, to go forth and to say, Mrs. Amazon ads person, I'm going to invest an incremental dollar into your P&L. That's a cookie for you. That's good for you. Okay. It's not necessarily good for the Amazon retail manager on the face of it. However, you have to sort of wire them up to say, hey, I'm going to go invest. And it's basically with incremental, it's going to be top of funnel, which is more important than ever. You're going to go invest an extra dollar in top of funnel. At some point in the not too distant future, that is going to yield an increase in consumption, OPS, point of sale, whatever you want to call it. And it spins the whole thing, up quite a bit. But, if you don't have sort of that orchestration, it's your own fault at the end of the day. I mean, it's so easy to say, oh, I invested this in Amazon and it didn't work. Well, what did you do to make sure that it worked? What did you do as the brand owner, as the head of whatever sort of commercial side of the brand you're running? it is so important that you sort of take the lead and define and say, look, and by the way, measuring ROAS, I got away from ROAS, Aaron. I got away from that the summer. I think it was the summer of like 19 or 20 when iOS 14, whatever, when basically Apple shut all the signals off of Meta, and you had no more signal coming out of Meta whatsoever, on iOS devices. And I said, you know what? We used ROAS. It was important, but it wasn't the be all end all. We've basically gone back to an old school ad to sales ratio. And you look at all the KPIs underneath. Of course, you look at ROAS. Of course, you look at click-through rate. Of course, you look at CAC. And of course, you look at all these things. But if your old school ad to sales ratio isn't moving, and by the way, if you don't have an agency partner who gets that and who doesn't, for God's sake, doesn't get drowned down in this arcane KPI that you, of course, can't deposit in the bank, you're dead. If you start following these little rabbit holes today, you're just dead if you miss the big picture.
Well, I have done a podcast with Megan Caroon over at Clear Data, and her whole thing is around data and being able to pull apart everything and then have a realistic look. At the end of the day, it's around sales, right? Did you move the needle, and where did you move the needle, and was the dollar spent worth it? It's the only, I think it's the most authentic retail media measurement platform that's out there. And it all goes back to, you can do return on ads, but you can actually pick whatever metric you want to follow. At the end of the day, did sales go up or down based on what you did? That's what everybody wants to know.
And they do so profitably over some horizon of time. Like that's, at the end of the day. And I'll tell you, the days of brands, having the ability to, we were talking, money's more expensive. And there's a whole conversation, of VC and PEs and what their appetite is to do some of this stuff today. If throwing, as a dear friend of mine calls, big dumb Death Star money at these things today, it's over. Like you have to figure out, and it's a lot of work, right? You got to figure out over some reasonable horizon how to grow top line, but at some degree of profitability. And it's tough stuff. I mean, it's not, and it's not just as simple as saying like an ATM, like it used to be years ago. Oh, I'll put $1 into Google AdWords and I'm going to get 20 out. That's over.
It's over. But you bring up another good point, which is the agency side, which is, a conversation I have regularly. I'd say a lot of my time is helping brands that start up the Fortune 500 with agency selection as a whole. And this idea that you don't need an agency. If you're small enough, I understand it. If you have a small enough SKU count, if you have a small enough spend, there's a variety of different ways to look at it. But in most cases, if you're, small, mid, to anything large, you need an agency partner there. You cannot stay on top of the rate at which technology is changing, the rate at which Amazon is changing, the rate at which it's releasing new things, which is where you get the most benefit, right? Is at the beginning when Amazon releases it. You remember AMC back in the day, or AMS back in the day, I was like at a nickel a bid. It was crazy. And we were able to build like 9 number one bestsellers.
Just, blitzing through the dashboard. I mean, that was a million years ago.
Yeah, but that was easy, right? You're just printing money. Those days are gone. And to have an agency partner, but again, alongside of that is a lot of, so I'm constantly polling the network, right? Of who's the best, who's working, who's not. Would you go with them again? Would you not go with them again? What are they great at? What are they bad at? To try to get this short list of agencies. And that is, direct consumer. It can be, a lot of it is just Amazon, full service, just paid media, content, whatever it might be. But when a lot of those got, gobbled up by PE or by larger agencies. This is something we were just chatting about. And then what happens at that point in time is the founder leaves and wheels fall off and passion's gone. Like, what is I heard you brought up agency. Like, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the agency side.
I was privileged to Amazon asked me to go talk to some agency partners at an event and earlier this spring. And there's a couple of things my recommendation, that's being on the brand side so long, was look, what I'm looking for in a great agency, right? Forget price, forget this, forget that, because that's easy. You can work all that out. Get away from the PowerPoints. Like, I don't want to, unless you're talking about a QBR to like a C-suite or a board or whatever, get away from the PowerPoints. If you can't on a biweekly or monthly basis sit and do this and just talk the business, and after a certain period of time, that agency partner spreckens your SKUs. The ABC 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, that's really doing great. Oh, the XYZ is not so good. Like, that's a good agency, right? And when they get to that point where, and it's cliche, but it's true, where they actually become an extension of your team, that's what you want. I think you also have to sort of level set what an agency can do and what they can't do. I've been on, in organizations where there's this irrational exuberance that an agency is going to come in and you're going to see just POs come in like you've never seen them before. That it's not going to happen. Like maybe 100 years ago, I don't even know if it happened then, but like that isn't going to happen. Like an ad agency is going to help you with the Amazon ad side of the house. All they can ultimately do is stimulate consumption. They can't control Amazon's weeks of cover, weeks of inventory that they're keeping. They can't control that. All they can do is help you create the pull in the marketplace. And then, once you're starting to run out of product, that's going to inherently stimulate, pulling goods in from the brand side. I'm oversimplifying that by a country mile, but like that's what they're capable of doing. I would say also what makes a great agency is folks that are going to be in your building some amount of time every month, quarter, whatever it is, because, I got to tell you, if you don't have that, you mentioned the word passion, you mentioned that sort of that energy. Look, this is an industry that can get pretty dry pretty fast. I mean, you're looking at, X's and O's and numbers all day. It can get dry. If you don't have sort of a love for what you do and in sort of like inject that into whatever brand that agency is working on, there's no sort of like magic there. And your point about, founders exiting, look, I could not have a deeper admiration for these guys that, I don't know, lived in their parents' basement for 4 years, starting the thing and sacrificed and, drove an 82 Honda with 3 wheels. I mean, like I have deep admiration for these guys that did that, stuck it out and then made money. But boy, oh boy, when they leave, it can get really, really, really tough.
Yeah, I mean, that passion is gone. And I also think like when they get that check, you have a lot of people, that were executing at a high level. We're like, I would love to get that check. And I've now warmed myself up to the point where I'm really, really good at what I do. Why don't I just step aside? Maybe they get a small like percentage, right? Not life-changing money, right? Maybe they go out and get a 2024 Honda, right? And then they start their own agency. And then that passion is there. But again, they're right out of the gate. They've got 3 people. They can't handle the bigger stuff. Over the past few years, as everybody's gotten kind of, acquired at that top level, it's been interesting to see. There's like a new slug that are just starting to get there right now. I mean, we have the, Universal McCanns, we have the Omnicoms, we have all these big ones. But as a whole, when we get into like niche Amazon paid media and execution, there's few. Most of them can't do it at the efficiency level, cost level, the performance level of a boutique agency that's fully focused on Amazon. Maybe Walmart, as well, but predominantly Amazon. You need that focus. It's so much different than every other platform.
It is. I mean, and to think that the sort of laws of physics that apply to Amazon, a lot of that is transferable across categories, verticals, but it doesn't really transfer over to Walmart, over to Target, certainly not on D2C. Like, you'd never make a product detail page the way Amazon does on your own D2C site. You would never do that. So, look, your mileage may vary. I've not seen a lot of folks and agencies that are great at Amazon be great at other things either. I've just not seen that.
Yeah, the only time I've seen it is when two like-minded agencies kind of come together, as one. And again, it's not an acquisition, it's more of a merger.
Yeah.
That is so rare, though. It is so rare. Usually it is just in Amazon. And that's fine. And Amazon operates so differently. It's going to be interesting over the next 5 years, as I think we're going to see an acceleration of it all coming together underneath kind of one chief digital officer as a whole. There's kind of the tug back and forth, it seems like, between sales and marketing. And maybe it's not the CDO. Maybe there's a new role that's out there, but at some point in time, the spend, you can't just have a sales team asking for more on a specific retailer. You can't just have the marketing not talking to the sales, not talking to operations or actually what's coming, the feedback into R&D from all these review programs that help you generate new products, or, actually the content for all of your advertising. You get into what actual products do we have in stock? Which ones do we want to sell on which platform? What's the bundle? Operations, sales.
You're going down the road of channel strategy. Boy, oh boy, that a whole separate conversation. I mean, it just also, this is, you ask, what's a great agency look like? Great agency, somebody's going to walk into your building and tell you, you guys are screwed up, and you've got, this fee, that fee, the other fee. No wonder you have all that. No wonder you've got sort of on certain SKUs a race to the bottom, because if you have a relatively new organization where this is all they know, and they're not in every single point of distribution across the country, they're not in every big box in the nation. Yeah, they're going to have some channel strategy because there's really not in that many channels. But if you've got sort of some of these legacy brands that are literally in 10,000 points of distribution across the country, chances are pretty good their channel strategy's iffy at best. Yeah. And so you got to have, you need a certain amount of humility. Like you mentioned, what does that role look like? Is it a chief digital officer, chief commercial officer? I have no idea where these titles are going. I mean, there's the chief everything now. It's amazing. But there's chief dog walker. I saw it's ridiculous.
I like chief everything officer. Chief everything officer.
Yes. But if you're not, orchestrating that, and I love that word because it's just so true. If you're not orchestrating some meaningful channel strategy across, a dedicated set of merchandising for Amazon, one for making this up, Walmart, Target, Ulta, Kohl's, Costco. If you're not sort of thinking that through, and you need to be doing that the way supply chains work 2 and 3 years out, you have to be anticipated a couple, 3 years out. If you're not doing that, you're going to have challenges of profitability.
Yeah. I mean, profitability, it's the number one driver of all the conversations I have when people, just reach out, say, hey, I want to have a conversation around XYZ. If there's any help, if there's any new strategies, ideas, it is all based on profitability. But as you're talking about that omnichannel, that the strategy as a whole is encourage people to go ASIN by ASIN, SKU by SKU, whatever it is, retailer by retailer, marketplace by marketplace. And what is your unit economics for every item? Now, it's going to be hard for you to pull, but not hard for your finance team to pull. They're going to be able to see it. And then that's going to help you with the strategy around again, this is getting back to the agency and the marketing side. What is your goal around driving growth? What products do you want to sell the most of? What drives the most profit, the least profit? You want to enable your agency or your internal marketing team should do the right thing to promote the items that are making money.
You have to. And like, I'll tell you, if you're not, someone else is. Like someone else out there. And it's shocking, Aaron, how, unless, look, there's many platforms out there that do this. There's some gold standards. I mean, you look at Stackline, you look at Jungle Scout. It's if you don't sort of have enough, I go back to the word humility to say, okay, those guys looking at sort of these nascent people that are out there on the platform, trust me, these guys know their profitability down to the color variant, the size variant. Trust me, they know. This is all they do. They don't have, they can't watch this multi-billion-dollar global organization. They can't do that. So like they sort of have no choice but to be like really, really prescriptive with what they do. But again, back to, the power of a really robust agency who maybe you've not done this before. And, maybe, that agency needs to really, really take their time and show you, hey, here's what's going on out there. Here's who's kicking your butt, quite honestly, in this category, this category, and this category. And by the way, you might not have known this. They're glomming share from you for the last like 3 years. And you're leaking share and you're just banging your head against the wall. Like, why am I plateauing? And if you look at the TAM on some of these categories, the TAMs are up 15, 20, 30%, but like I'm flat. Why is that? Well, you gotta reverse engineer it. And I keep coming back to this concept of humility. I mean, you and I have been around a lot of people with, egos. I don't know how they fit in these buildings. I mean, I don't know how they get in the front door of some of these buildings. I really don't. And, you have to approach, Bezos every day is day one at Amazon. You kind of have to approach your business that way too, because for someone else, it literally is their day one of their business. And, they're deconstructing you better than you've deconstructed yourself. So you really, really have to get, slicey and dicey, break it all down to sort of like build it back up to accelerate it sometimes.
Yeah, I was reading this a long time ago, a book, and it was saying, somebody out there right now is building the silver bullet for your business. And
true.
And you can't stand still because you got to be moving. You got to get out of the way. And I agree. But it's tough, man. Like I think man, it's a grind, especially on the marketing side, on the paid media side, on everything. Like the jobs in marketing, digital marketing. I've said this over and over again, I think, on the podcast. They've changed more. They're changing faster than ever before. And you're required to stay on top of it. And the people that you're reporting to have no idea what it's like. And in that absence of knowledge, people oversimplify and assume the worst. Right? Oh, it should be easier. I see everybody else growing. Right? Like, why aren't we growing? I guess we can't growing. And maybe you don't know what you're doing, or maybe we need to fire the current agency, or maybe we need to whatever. But, in reality, a lot of times I feel like I'm providing a therapy session for brands. Like,
yeah,
like you guys know it better than anybody else. Yeah.
Look, I despite, conventional wisdom, I don't know a lot of people in my type of seat that just, play with little G.I. Joe dolls all day. I mean, I've heard that once. I have heard that. I've never really actually seen it happen. But while I completely agree with you, like, this is tough stuff. It's just really, really tough stuff. But, at the end of the day, I'll tell you two things. You are not solving the great medical mysteries of our time. I mean, there are solutions there. They do, however, take a whole ton of work. And I can tell the leadership, if you think you're going to be in your building, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 hours a week and just punch the time in, think you're going to be successful, you won't, because it requires work. And to your point, your entire building, your supply chain, your ops, your brand, your marketing, everybody, it requires work and all that. But when you get it right with the tools that are out there today, I mean, my God, you can do stuff on Prime Video, right? You can do stuff there that if you're orchestrating it properly, you will see a lift out at Walmart, Target, Costco, Kohl's, Ulta, Sephora. you will see a lift out there, and it's measurable, right? Like it's yeah, I agree. The halo effect and all that, great, but like you can actually measure this stuff today. If you sort of think it through before you just throw a bunch of money at it. So while yeah, it's tough stuff, the things that you can do and quantify today are pretty awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we're right here at time, my friend. Tim, thanks so much for your time today. This has been awesome.
I don't really hear my dogs here at the time too.
Yeah, I know, right? They're like, time to go. But just thanks for being such a great friend, partner, supporter of the network as a whole. And thanks everybody for listening to this episode of the Digital Deep Dive. Thanks everybody for listening. Have a great week.
Always a pleasure.